So picture this, I'm 19 years old, I'm sitting around on a Sunday evening, nothing's really going on, right? I'm just sort of using my phone, chilling, waiting for dinner, right? So I'm just scrolling on something, right? And I get a call, just pops up on my phone. And I see the name. And it's the girl that I've been in love with for years. And just calls me randomly, which doesn't happen, by the way. So I see the name, I see the call, and I sort of freeze for a second. My heart sort of jumps, right? I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, what's this about, right? Why am I getting called all of a sudden? So I pick up the phone, and she's in the hospital. She's calling me from the hospital. And she tells me, I'm here, I've actually been here for the last 2 days. I fainted, and I've just, I've got this sort of blood issue at the moment, low platelet count, whatever, right? And and my heart starts racing, right? Like what? Like what are you supposed to do when you get a phone call like that, right? But anyway, she tells me that she's been there for 2 days. Nobody actually even knows that she's there other than her family, right? So no one's visited her, nothing. But she's calling me to ask me if I wanted to go and visit her that evening, and if I was doing anything. And so obviously whatever I was thinking of doing later in that evening was completely scrapped, right? I just said, yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, no, I'm not doing anything, yeah, of course, I'll come see you, right? And like, so I knew in my heart, right, that I somewhere deep down, I knew in my subconscious, in my heart, whatever, that I actually really did love this person, right? I was head over heels for this girl. But she didn't know that, right? She didn't know that. And if you had asked me in that moment, or any time for years before that, I would have said, no, we're like best friends, whatever. She's like a sister to me, right? So I was completely lying to myself and to her, right? By omission. But anyway, so I quickly, get dressed, whatever, and I buy some food, because, hospital food is dog shit, right? So, I went out, I get her favorite fried chicken, and I just rock up to her bedside at the hospital with a whole big bag of fried chicken. And she obviously lit up, right? Super happy, because she's been eating this dog shit food. And so, I pull out the fried chicken, we sit down, we start eating, and I look over to her sitting there happily fucking chowing down on this fried chicken, right? Big fucking smile, just ecstatic. And I remember so distinctly looking over at her in her pale green hospital gown with the little tag, little bracelet thing, and thinking, I sort of stopped and just stared at her, not stared in a creepy way, but just looked at her for about 3 to 5 seconds, just looking at her. And I remember thinking, I could have lost this person. Like, I really could have lost. What if I lost this person? What would that have done to me? Like, I could have lost her this weekend. And now here she is sitting in front of me, fucking chowing down on some fried chicken, right? And that thought completely just changed. Like, I realized that while looking at her in that moment, I realized that I would have done anything to not lose this person. And that I couldn't even imagine what my life would be like if she wasn't there, right? And so that exact moment was when my lie that I've been telling myself and her for years completely unwound. And so the night goes on, whatever, and I just sit there and we're just talking, and I stay completely past the visiting hours because I didn't give a fuck, and I was told to leave multiple times. Didn't care, just sort of hid the fact that I was there. I even, when the lights turned down, whatever, I just sort of hid myself away sort of behind the bed-ish, so that I was still kind of sitting there and we could still talk softly, we could still whisper. And I remember staying there until like 1:30, 2 in the morning. And so guess what I did when I left the hospital and I went home? With the knowledge that I had just been confronted with, what did I do? I continued to lie to myself. I just went to bed, woke up and went, nope, we're good, we're chilling, you know? None of that, I mean, what does that even mean? That doesn't really mean anything, does it? Like, fuck it, no, we're like best friends, it's all good. And that continued for a few months. A few more months. I just, avoided it. Because of what it would have meant if I confronted it. It meant potentially losing the friendship and losing this person because maybe she doesn't feel the same way and she's gonna cut me off, whatever. I don't know what's gonna happen, right? So fuck it, just perpetuate the lie. Keep living the way that you've always been living for the last few years. Like, why rock the boat? But anyways, you can probably tell from the title of this video, I didn't perpetuate that lie forever. I ended up actually telling the truth and bringing my actual feelings for this person to the forefront, right? And that actually ended up being the best thing. Wow, shocker, right? But that actually ended up being the best thing for the situation and for the relationship in the long term. It ended up being the absolute best thing that I could have done. And it was a complete adventure, right? And so, I mean, if you want to find out how that story ends, I mean, you can maybe stick around to the end of the video. I'll mention how that story ends. But there are many great reasons why I think telling the truth is the adventure of a lifetime. Right, and there are many experiences that I've had, this one among them, that back that up to me, right? And if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you probably know and you're aware that truth is a big core value to me, and I think it's something that every good man subscribes to. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris, and I make these videos to try to figure out what it means to actually be a good man in this crazy modern world that we live in, this twisted and strange space. So first, I'm going to start actually by steel-manning the case for lying, right? And so if you're not familiar with what steel-manning is, it's basically a very strong debate tactic where you take an argument and you beef it up to its strongest possible form that you can, and then you attack that, right? Versus the opposite of that, which would be straw-manning, which is a much more common thing that you'll see in politics and whatever, if you see like politicians debating or people on the fucking news or whatever, right? They're going to take a version of an argument and reduce it to its absolute simplest, stupidest form, and then completely destroy that, right? And so you can obviously see why steel manning is stronger and why straw manning something is actually a very weak thing to do, because anyone can stomp on an ant, okay? Anyone can completely just take their foot and just crush an ant of an argument, okay? That's not difficult, right? That doesn't take any real cognitive horsepower to fucking do that. But not everybody can take an argument and make it into its strongest form, literally give it weapons, give it armor, make it into a huge fucking beast, and then slay that beast, right? So that's what steel manning is. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make the case for why people want to lie and why it's actually a really powerful thing. And I'm going to completely steel man that case for lying. And then from there, we're going to attack it and completely destroy it as well. So first, let's start with some quick definitions. So there's different kinds of lying, right? So there's lying by commission, which is just outright saying a false thing through your teeth, right? So an example of that would be if you ask me like what color shirt I'm wearing right now, and I told you red. It's like, I'm completely lying by commission. I'm just telling you a false thing, okay? Then there's lying by omission, right, which is omitting the truth from a statement, right? So otherwise known as white lies, right? So this could be something like, let's say, a guy in a relationship and he cheats or something, right? Or he goes to a party and like makes out with some girl or whatever, and he says to his girlfriend, there was this girl that was like, kind of like all up on me, whatever, but like, oh, it's okay, like I took care of it or whatever, right? So like, that's what he tells his girlfriend, right? So he's lying by omission. He's omitting the important facts of the matter, which are that he actually, his taking care of it was actually, being unfaithful, right? So that's lying by omission. So now let's get into the extremely powerful benefits of lying, right? And why someone would even want to lie in the first place, right? So the first benefit is immediacy. Okay, so immediate results, immediate gratification. So you can get what you want out of a situation by lying instantaneously, right? It's like you build this structure and instantaneously it's solid, and it can, people can bump into it and they're like, oh wow, yeah, no, that's solid, right? And it can be solid as long as if you're good at lying, that structure can stay solid for a meaningful period of time for you to extract your desired outcomes out of the situation, right? So again, okay, let's go back to the example of that guy at the party or whatever. Let's say he's at a club, right? And so let's say this girl is like making they're like making moves on each other, whatever, and she asks him, "Oh, do you have a girlfriend?" And he just goes, "No," right? Immediate results, because that immediately gets him what he wants. Okay, so benefit number 2 is control, right? If you're someone who really likes to have full control over a situation, lying is a great way to do that. Because if you're good at it, right, you can completely customize the results that you want to get, and customize people's perception of you, right? So let's say again, this guy at the party, whatever, he tells this girl, oh yeah, like he kind of implies that like maybe he's like a millionaire or something, but if you checked his bank account, it's fucking like empty or negative or something, right? But anyway, he gets to customize her perception of him, and he gets to say like, oh yeah, I'm actually a promoter at this club. It's no big deal, whatever. I can get us like, whatever bottles and stuff. But hey, I mean, look, I'm not on duty right now, whatever. Like, just keep it hush hush. We're not supposed to tell anybody, whatever, right? That's a pretty good example I just came up with. But like, that is a completely fabricated structure. But again, as long as it's not verifiable for the person that he's talking to, then he gets to maintain that structure for however long it takes for him to, again, get what he wants out of the situation. And so when you're lying, you're able to manipulate people's perception of you, and therefore the social outcomes, or even outcomes that aren't social, you're able to get those out of the situation any way that you want. So benefit number 3, which is a huge one, it's enormous benefit, which probably constitutes like 90% of the lies ever told by anyone, is you get to avoid conflict. Okay, huge benefit. Right, so as long as you're good enough at spinning a web of lies, you can all but guarantee the complete absence of any kind of undesirable conflict in a situation, at least for the short to medium term. You get to completely just avoid that, right? So again, going back to this guy at the party, makes out with this girl, whatever, but he has a girlfriend. In the back of his mind, he's thinking, fuck, if my girl found out about this, it's gonna be a huge fight, huge conflict that's potentially gonna end in a really nasty way. So I really want to avoid that conflict. I don't want to face that. So cool, I get to spin a web of lies, boom, and I'm out of the situation. Conflict avoided in the short to medium term, right? Maybe take a student who got really bad grades in a set of exams, and he's really not ready to face the full force of his parents or his, father just like whooping his ass, right? So he creates a fake version of his results slip and passes that to the parents, right? So they think he's doing well. Boom, conflict avoided, right? Enormous benefit, right? And this is, again, this probably, in my opinion, constitutes, like, if you really inspect it, probably like 90% of the lies that you tell. Okay, so at this point, let's zoom out for a second and imagine that I'm a salesperson, okay? And I'm telling you, hey buddy, look, I've got this mode of operating in the world where, like, get this, okay? You can get exactly what you want right away. Anything that you want right now that you're thinking of, you can get that right away, exactly to your liking. You can customize it to however, exactly the way that you want it, okay? And you get to avoid any problems or conflict along the way that's gonna come up in that process, right? And if you're really good at it, you can maybe avoid that conflict forever. How does that sound, right? If I was selling that to you, if you were just a blank canvas of a person, let's say, like completely just jettison your current sense of morality that you have. If you were a blank canvas, you didn't know up from down, and you heard that sales pitch of this way of operating in the world, like, you'd think, Hell yeah, that sounds fucking amazing, man. So now that you've heard the sales pitch for lying, right? Now that we've built up the steel man, right? We've given the armor and the weapons, okay? Now let's get to the part where the stuff that the sales guy doesn't tell you, right? And this is why salespeople have such a bad reputation most of the time, because most salespeople will only confer the benefits to you and they won't tell you the trade-offs for those benefits, whatever those trade-offs are. Let's get to that. All right, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to fighting the steel man that we've just built up. Okay, so on the first one, the first benefit, which the trade-off hasn't been disclosed yet, is immediacy, right? So you get to have what you want immediately, right? You get to build this structure, which, like I said, it's solid at the start, right? And so people can brush up against it, they can push it, and as long as they can't verify any of the falsehoods that you've spun, it's solid, right, in the immediate term. So the trade-off for this is enormous, okay? Because what it necessitates is that, one, you have no long-term associations with these people that you have to maintain, right? Which is something that, again, in some cases you might be sure of that, but in others you really don't know. You don't know the unintended consequences that are gonna stem from the falsehoods that you've spun in these relationships, right? Something that people really don't account for in trade-offs is the law of unintended consequences, right? You don't know, right? And especially if this is someone that you're going to be talking to and associating with for the long term, what you're going to have to do to keep that structure solid is you're going to have to remember all of the shit that you said, right? Such that the structure remains solid, right? And the next time, I don't know, something comes up around that, discussion, you're gonna have to remember, fuck, what did I tell this person? Oh yeah, no, I think I told them this, okay, cool. Then you can continue to spin the web, right? And so that expends a huge amount of energy, especially if you're doing that on multiple fronts to multiple people. You have to remember who you told what, at what time, to what level of detail, right? So that's a huge expense of energy on your part, which you can't also guarantee that you'll be able to keep that up, right? Especially, again, as time goes on, relationships deepen, whatever, and you have to continue to spin the web deeper and deeper. So not only do you have to retain all the information, but you have to dig yourself into a deeper and deeper hole, right? And the next thing is that although you get immediate results, human beings do not exist in slices of time. We exist across time as a continuum. Okay, so you don't just exist now. There's you right now, but there's you tomorrow morning, right, when you wake up, and having to deal with the consequences of what you said or did that were pernicious or false the night before, right? And you have to deal with yourself next month, and next year, and 10 years from now, okay? So if we could close the curtains, if we could completely just close the curtains on your life right after you lied and got what you wanted out of it, then it's a great way to operate in the world, right? Because you can just get away with it and then close the curtains, right? Your life's done, boom, stop, we press pause, that's it, it's over. But that's not how humans exist, right? We exist across time. And so whatever you've done in the immediate term, that again will have unintended consequences potentially in the long term, you can't predict what those are going to be. And so what you do is you trade off this immediate gratification for screwing yourself over in the long term for the reasons that I stated, where you have to keep spinning the deeper web and you have to expend energy remembering whatever the fuck you told this person, right? And so you're damning yourself in the long term. So future you're borrowing energy and time and resources and trustworthiness from future you into the present. You're borrowing that. So you're robbing future you of good things, right? To have them right now, to have whatever it is that you wanted right now. So understand that that's what it is. It's a trade-off, right? You don't get something for nothing. You get something now at the cost of something later. Okay, so the more lies you tell in the present moment, again, if we could just close the curtains on your life right now, then it's all good. It's all everything's dandy, right? But no, you exist now and you exist tomorrow and next week and next month and next year. And so you're screwing over future you is what you're doing. And so benefit number 2, let's talk about the trade-off for having full control over a situation through lying, right? So the trade-off that the salesperson doesn't tell you is that control becomes harder and harder to maintain over time. We kind of touched on this in the previous point, which is that the energy that you need to expend to maintain that control, it's like an exponential graph. It goes like this. Okay, it goes, oh yeah, it's okay, I can just get away with these couple of lies, And as you keep going, as you get deeper and deeper into it, it goes like this, right? And the amount of energy that it takes to maintain it gets unsustainable in most cases, all right? And so in some cases, maybe you get away with something forever, but that also comes at a cost, which we'll get into, I'll explain later, okay? So the control is difficult, very, very difficult to maintain, because no matter how smart you are, right? No matter how intelligently you're able to spin the web, you cannot guarantee that someone more intelligent than you, who perhaps has information that you're not aware of, will be able to insert that and completely crumble that web of lies. Again, unintended consequences, you don't know, right? And so when that inevitably happens, right, to maintain that control, you are going to have to spin delusions that would make the devil himself like shocked. So now let's talk about my favorite benefit of lying, which is avoiding conflict in the short to medium term. Okay, let's talk about the trade-offs for that. So now, like, even just as a starting point, even the words avoiding conflict as it pertains to lying is actually a huge fallacy, right? And so the reason for that is that you're not avoiding conflict, you're delaying it. Okay, that's a huge difference. Okay, so it's not that you get to avoid the conflict forever. Okay, we'll get into why. But it's that you're able to delay it for later, right? So again, you're screwing over the future version of you. So conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. Okay, so the longer you push something under a rug, right? The longer you avoid think about, I think there's this old kid story where there's this dragon that appears in this family's house, whatever, and they all pretend like the dragon isn't there. And it's just a little baby dragon, whatever. They just kind of ignore it, right? And the dragon grows in size based on how little attention it gets. So the less attention it gets, the more it's ignored, rather, the bigger it grows, right? And so they ignore it and they ignore it, and then so it starts out as this little baby, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and it starts to take up a big, space in the kid's room. And, the kid, maybe tries to point it out, and the parents go, no, there's no such thing as dragons. There's no such thing, right? And so he goes, okay, no such thing. Just ignores it. The dragon gets big, and then it starts to fill up the whole living room of the house, and they're still ignoring it. And then eventually it gets so big that it destroys the entire house, right? And so the lesson there is that conflict delayed, again, is conflict multiplied. So again, if we go back to the example of the guy who does not tell, his girlfriend, whatever, that he was unfaithful, okay? Let's just say that someone in the crowd saw it, but chose to hold their tongue for the time being, right? Until a couple months later, where that person, maybe that guy who saw it happen, who was okay with the cheating guy for a while, maybe they're friends, whatever, but then they get into a scuffle, they get into a fight. Again, unintended consequences. You can't predict what's gonna happen in the future, right? So they get into a scuffle, and he goes, you know what? Fuck you. And then he tells the girlfriend, yeah, you know what happened? Fucking 3 months ago, this dude fucking made out with this girl. Check it. Boom, I've got it on video. Oh, boom, now the guy's screwed, right? And now the conflict that might have been a smaller fight, let's say, right? If this person had just gone back and told his girl that he had done this, that fight becomes much bigger because he didn't mention it for 3 fucking months. And then she realizes, holy shit, I'm dating a guy that I don't even know if he is who I think he is, right? Because I've been living in a complete delusion. I've been living in a lie for the last 3 months. And so that conflict is delayed, right? It wasn't avoided. It was only avoided in the short to medium term, right? Again, which is going back to this sort of narrow, immediate gratification idea that we covered in immediacy, right? So it was just delayed. And as a consequence of it being delayed, the conflict was multiplied. It became much bigger, okay? So now, if you're here and you're sitting here and you're thinking, I'm someone who really doesn't like conflict, then really, you should be just telling the truth. Even if that results in conflict in the short term, meaning immediate conflict, at least it's small, okay? At least it's the tiny baby dragon and not the big fucking building-sized dragon, right? If you really hate conflict as much as you say you do, what you would really do is just tell the truth immediately, or at least not lie. Because then at least the conflict that you'd have would be much smaller than it would if you tried to delay it. Cool, so now let's get to some fun stuff, which if you are a frequent liar, you've probably thought some of these objections that I'm going to list right now. Some of these might have sprung up in your head, right? When, I talked about, hey, maybe you should just tell the truth. Maybe you heard a voice that said something like, well, but some things, it's such a small lie, so some things, it's so small, it's not hurting anybody. It's so small, it's not hurting anybody. In fact, it's even helping the situation, okay? That might be one objection that you had. Another one might be, well, I mean, look, nobody will ever find out. So like, why does it matter anyway? Like if really, like you said, Chris, if it's not verifiable by anybody, and if I'm very confident that it's not gonna ever be verifiable, then why does it matter, right? Okay, and then the last one maybe is the people that I'm lying to, you don't understand, Chris. Look, you don't understand, I have to lie to them because those people that I'm lying to, whoever they are, they can't handle the truth. They can't handle it. They will crumble. Okay, so it's actually better this way. That might be one that you have to, okay? So I should just touch on that last one really quickly because it's really fast. We've already kind of covered why this is a fallacy, which is because, look, dude, if they can't handle the truth now, what makes you think that they'll be able to handle it later in its delayed form? When it's even bigger of a hit to them because they got it so late, right? And their entire perception of you has to change on such a long time scale versus a short one where you just told them straight away. If you really think that they can't handle it, if you really care about them so much, like you are posturing to, then what you would really do is tell them now, when it's smaller. When the pain, when the conflict that would arise from it is easier for them to deal with if they are so weak and can't handle the truth as you are thinking, all right? And the first one, it's such a small lie, it's not hurting anybody, in fact, it's probably helping. This is gonna bring us to the main point of this video, okay? And so is the nobody will ever find out, why does it matter? These two objections are bringing us to the convergence of the main point of this video, which is that lying to other people sometimes can be achieved in a very shallow sense, where you lie to someone and you know what the truth is, you actually know, but you're just lying to them because whatever, it doesn't matter, okay? But the more deeper lies, the more sinister and pernicious lies are the ones where you actually, to lie to someone else, you first have to lie to yourself. And this, if you think about it, if you really inspect the lies that you've told recently, you might realize that you first had to lie to yourself about it before you were able to lie to someone else about that thing, right? And so the reason this is so detrimental and the worst thing that you can do to yourself is lie to yourself is because everybody, whether you want to admit this or not, in your conscience, you have an internal barometer, okay? You have an internal reputation with yourself that you keep. You keep score of that. Nobody else does, because nobody knows all the shit that you've done, all the problems that you've had or whatever, okay? So you have this internal scorekeeping with yourself, this reputation, okay? And every time that you lie to yourself about something, you chip away at your reputation with yourself. You chip away with the trust that you have in yourself of your ability to discern the situation. Because when you lie to yourself, what you're really doing when you're telling a lie is, if you imagine the fabric of the continuum of your life or of reality as a string, what you're really doing is you're twisting it, right? It's supposed to be straight, right? But you're twisting it. And what happens as life goes on, as the string gets pulled, it gets longer and longer, okay? Because you're gonna live longer and longer. As you go through time, the string gets pulled, there's more tension in the string, and it wants to unsnap that little twist that you did. So again, you have to expend more and more energy to, no, stay here, stay in this position that I put you in, right? And you twist it, and it pulls and pulls and pulls, and eventually, all those subsequent little twists that you put in that string, eventually the tension is going to make all of those snap back into position, and they're going to snap all tick, 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 one by one, and the force that's going to generate on your life and how much that can unwind your reality is going to be immense, depending on how much you've lied to yourself, Okay? And so you degrade your reputation of your ability to discern what reality itself even is. Because to lie to yourself, you have to convince yourself of a distorted form of reality than what it really is. You have to go, no, Chris, no, it's not this. No, don't worry about that. It's not this. It's really this. It's this. It's this other thing. And that other thing is a distortion. It's not real, right? It's not the thing that is most in line with what's really happening in the world. Okay? And so when you do that enough times, you believe varying distortions of reality, right? You lead yourself so far, sometimes you can lead yourself so far astray from actual grounded truth of what's going on, that you are no longer, you're not on solid ground anymore, buddy. Like, you're hovering up in the fucking clouds somewhere on a complete house of cards, right? Because the foundations of cause and effect that you've built up from lying to yourself makes it such that something could just come along, a gust of wind could come along and completely destroy what you are standing on and what you've convinced yourself is reality. Because again, you're so far from solid ground, you become deluded, right? And so again, when you lie to yourself, what you're really doing is stopping you from being able to trust yourself to figure out what's going on and to really get grounded in reality. Because look, you need to be able to trust yourself, of course, right? Because when everything's fine and dandy and when life is beautiful and nothing's going wrong, it's who cares, right? It's fine. You don't really need to trust yourself on anything too serious. Nothing's really going on. But when shit hits the fan and you have no one to turn to, you can only turn to yourself. And so imagine if in that moment, when you need to figure out what the fuck is really going on, what do I do here? What if in that moment, your reputation with yourself is so bad that you actually genuinely can't trust yourself to even really figure out what's going on? Because for the longest time, you have been just distorting reality to yourself. So you can't even trust yourself to figure it out. That is terrifying. You should be if you're gonna be scared of anything, be scared of the correct thing, okay? You should be more scared of not being able to trust yourself than whatever conflicts or problems are gonna arise from you telling the truth. Because at least when you tell the truth, fucking hell, at least look, I'm straight. I'm straight with myself, right? My rep is good with myself, at least, right? So at least I can trust myself. Like, you should be afraid, you should be more afraid of not being able to trust yourself. And so that leads us into why telling the truth is an adventure, because you're not gonna actually know most of the time what's gonna happen when you tell the truth. I mean, a lot of the time it's gonna be utterly painful, right? Because again, a lot of lies happen as a result of avoiding conflict. So if you start committing yourself to actually telling the truth, you're gonna run into a lot more conflict in the short term, right? And so it's an adventure because you might not know what's gonna happen from you telling the actual truth. You think, fuck, I mean, well, it's gonna hurt, but like, fuck it, right? If you hold the belief that, which I do, that whatever outcome results from you telling the truth, whatever outcome that is, even if we're not able to inspect it, that outcome is the best in the long term. It is the best, most optimal long-term strategy is just telling the truth. And it might not be in the short term, because you're gonna run into conflict there. But in the long term, again, because your reputation with yourself is completely intact and you can trust yourself, then other people can trust you. Okay? If you think about all the people that you think aren't trustworthy, it's probably because you can tell that they're lying, but even deeper than that, you can probably tell that they're lying to themselves and that they're putting on this whole front and they're not really being who they are and they're being who they think other people want them to be, etc. You find those people untrustworthy, don't you? And think about the people that you actually do trust. They probably just show up as themselves all the time. They're just unapologetically like, oh, yo, look, dude, boom, look, this is how it is. And you respect that, you admire that in some way, right? And so imagine if you could be that person. This is why telling the truth is an adventure, because you don't really know where it's going to take you, but you know in your heart that in the long term it's going to be best, right? Another cool thing is that when you tell the truth, this is a Mark Twain quote actually. Fun fact, Mark Twain is not actually a real person. His real name is Samuel Clemens. But anyway, so Mark Twain quote, which is, the biggest advantage of telling the truth is that I don't have to remember what I said. going back to like that whole thing where it takes so much energy to keep spinning the web of lies. It's like, dude, when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. You can just forget whatever the fuck you said, because if you get asked again, you can just be like, oh yeah, well, what happened? Oh yeah, this happened, right? You don't have to remember anything, right? There's another quote from a Robin Williams song that I like. The name of it's escaping me now. Shame. Shame is what the song is called. Interesting name. But anyway, the quote is, words come easy when they're true. I thought that was beautiful when I heard that. Words come easy when they're true, because they really do. There's no obstruction. It's just, look, I'm just going to say what I think. I'm just going to say, like, look, this is really the truth of how I feel. There's no obstructions to it. You don't have to sit and think, well, what's my relationship with this person like, and what do they know about me, and what do they not know, and how can I craft these words such that they fit the situation that I've spun with them? Fuck, man, you get to avoid all of that, right? Words come easy when they're true. And so if you need even more convincing, right, you might ask the question, well, Chris, why do you believe that telling the truth is the best case in the long term? Like, how can you believe that, right? Well, first of all, I've stacked evidence. I've seen evidence of that in my life. Just countless times, just slapping me over the head of like, dude, look, you told the truth of this thing, and look how it turned out. It turned out amazing. And you weren't able to predict what was going to happen, but it turned out amazing, right? So that's one. And two, for the obvious logical reason, right? Like, use your logic a little bit here. If you just tell the truth, you are living out a life of cause and effect that is most in line with reality, with what's really going on in the world and in your life, right? You get to telling the truth is the thing that most accurately tracks actual reality and solid ground. The degree to which you lie is the degree to which you're not tracking what's actual reality. And so if you just tell the truth, you get to have, guess what? You get to have a real life with real connections and real friendships and relationships, right? That again they're not fake in any way, and they're not fabricated, and they don't take effort for you to maintain a certain image or anything like that. No, you get to just have real relationships with people. And you get to just live a real life with none of it being fake, none of it being constructed. It's all just solid ground. Imagine that. Imagine all the lies, all the webs that you've ever spun that don't even need to be there anymore. You can just exist as yourself, right? On solid ground. That's where you're meant to be. That's why it feels good. So if you're going to take away anything from this video, it would be tell the truth, or at the very least, don't lie. Try your very best to just adhere to that, and you'll be surprised at how beautiful of a life you can live that's just solid ground and actual reality in every direction that you look. All right? And future you will thank the fuck out of past you for just telling the truth, or at least not lying. I hope this was a valuable video for you. It was fun for me to make. I hope you enjoyed tearing down the steel man with me. And if you have any thoughts, leave it in the comments. I want to know what you think. If you think I'm missing anything, or you think I'm an idiot in some way and you have some arguments against it, like, let's go, drop it in the comments. I love discussing these kind of things. If you're interested in more sort of discussions like this, you can consider joining my free community. It's literally the first link in the description. There's a lot of guys in there that enjoy conversations like these, and we have weekly calls in there too. So it's fun because we get to talk about them. So yeah, that's everything. I hope this video was valuable for you. And yeah, if it was, like, subscribe, do all that fucking YouTuber stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.